Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is August the 20th, 2026. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Thursday. Hopefully the day treated you right, treated you nice. As for me, as for mine, it's been a pretty good day. Long day, but I'll say a good day. Started off, had a good amount of sleep under my jacket, at least, for me. Felt good, felt rested enough. Got myself together, got to work. Work was busy from the jump. The crusher was filled, so was not happy to see that. I proceeded to try to make do and just push the crusher for literally 4 hours. I was hoping that, hey, just around the corner, Rumpke's going to come and they're going to swap this out and we're going to be good to go. They did not come for the whole day. So by my lunch break, I called it. It was making noises I didn't like. It was shutting down in ways I didn't like. So called it, and we went upstairs and did putbacks, other sort of tasks. It was a busy day, draining day, but we got through it. It was the kind of day where your brain feels smoother for the experience, which, yeah. But we did wind up at the gym. It wasn't the best pump, but I was glad that I was able just to get straight there, no pit stops, get in, get out. Came home, I did have a stretch, which was nice, and proceeded to do some research, which was good, as is tradition. And on top of that, this is a bit inside baseball, but we have been having a bit of technical difficulties. It's one of those eps that is like, oh, this took a lot more effort to do than I would have liked. But so it goes. Cowboys make do. Podcasters do the most. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's just get into the news. We're going to skip the startup for today. All right. Our first story comes from CBS News. Pilot killed as small plane collides with state police helicopter at Pennsylvania airport, officials say. One person was killed and two Pennsylvania state police troopers were injured when a small plane crashed into a state police helicopter while it was hovering several feet off the ground during a training exercise at an airport in central Pennsylvania on Wednesday evening, authorities said. The collision at Carlisle Airport in Cumberland County involved a Cessna 150 and a Bell 407 chopper, the Federal Aviation Administration said. The pilot of the Cessna, who was its only occupant, was killed in the collision, acting State Police Commissioner Lieutenant Colonel George Bevins said at a news conference Wednesday night. Two pilots aboard the chopper, who were members of the state police's elite aviation unit, were injured but are expected to survive, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said at the briefing. The helicopter was based out of Harrisburg, was conducting routine training exercises at Carlisle Airport when the crash occurred just before 7 p.m. local time, Bevin said. The helicopter was hovering several feet off the ground in a grassy area adjacent to the runway when a small Cessna approached from behind and lined up with one of the runways near that grass area, Bevins told reporters. As that Cessna came down along that runway, for an unknown reason, it veered hard to the right at the last moment, Bevins said. It struck the helicopter from the rear. The pilots would not have been able to even see that airplane approaching them. Pennsylvania State Police said in a later statement that the collision occurred while the helicopter was on the ground. So I don't know why the story changes at that point. But that being said, either way, in whatever reality they're saying it happened, I wouldn't put it on the helicopter in this situation. I usually would like to, but it definitely seems like the Cessna is at fault, which really it's like I wouldn't want to be in either of these. I wouldn't want to be in the Cessna. I wouldn't want to be in the helicopter. Just from the, previous episodes, previous situations that we've covered before on the pod. It's obviously very unfortunate. It's very sad. Obviously condolences. But yeah, definitely a bummer to start off with. But we're moving from this story into a Ukrainian corruption story from The Guardian. Volodymyr Zelensky sacks senior aide amid Ukraine corruption crisis. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has fired a senior aide amid a fresh corruption investigation, one day after a former defense minister warned the country was facing a crisis of governance and needed to hold a wartime presidential election. Irna Mudra, a presidential deputy chief of staff, was dismissed by decree after multiple reports in Ukrainian media that her house was being searched by officials investigating an alleged money laundering scheme. No official reason was given for Mudra's sacking, as Zelensky sought to carry on as normal, despite Mikhailo Fedorov's surprise call for an early presidential election and a video address released late on Tuesday. The president did not directly address the ousted minister's accusations or his election demand in his initial public statements, though he did thank Ukraine's parliament for voting to confirm Fedorov's replacement, Yevhen Kamara, in the Post. At the heart of Fedorov's argument were accusations that corruption remained widespread under Zelensky and that the president had failed to get a grip. Corruption is only a symptom. The main problem runs much deeper. We have a systematic crisis of governance, Fedorov had said. The removal of Fedorov from his post in July triggered the most significant street protests in Ukraine since the war began. Fedorov is now considering visiting the U.S., possibly as soon as next week, in an apparent effort to win over American support. In the past, U.S. President Donald Trump has called for Ukraine to hold elections, though his comments were made at a time when his relationship with Zelensky was strained. But yeah, it's also in the Constitution that they can't have elections in the war, which that's understandable. But yeah, I mean, I also don't know how much traction Fedorov really has here. Time will tell. We will see. But I don't know. My guess is we're not going to be seeing a new president in Ukraine anytime soon. But, who can say? Let's move on, though, to our next story from Reuters. China Evergrande founder sentenced to life in prison. The founder of China Evergrande Group, the world's most indebted property developer, was sentenced to life in prison by a Chinese court on Thursday, 5 years after the firm's collapse shook the nation's economy and financial markets. Let's see, Hui Kan Yang, or let me say that right, Hui Ka Yan, once Asia's richest man, pleaded guilty in April to 8 charges, including misuse of funds, fundraising fraud, illegally taking public deposits, illegally extending loans, fraudulently issuing securities, and bribery. Evergrande, once China's premier developer, has defaulted on most of its $300 billion in liabilities, its troubles symbolizing a crisis in the property sector that has long dragged on the world's second biggest economy. The sentence in the southern city of Shenzhen, which included confiscating all of Hui's personal property, ends his rags to riches story, but is unlikely to bring much solace to Evergrande's domestic and foreign creditors. Evergrande's liquidators declined to comment on the sentence. Reuters could not reach legal representatives for Hui, who had not been seen in public since Chinese authorities detained him in 2023, following Evergrande's default. In pictures released by the court, gray-haired Hui, 67, stood flanked by 2 officers wearing a long-sleeved navy blue collared shirt as the court read out his sentence. I'm going to skip, though, to this and more or less close it out just for the sake of time. Comments by Evergrande's homeowners in a social media group included, "All ordinary citizens have paid the cost. Imprisonment is meant to protect him. If he comes out, his life is in jeopardy. What about our money?" So yeah, this is one of those where I hate to say it, but I'm happy to see it. I'm never rooting like, oh yeah, someone's going to be in jail, But the idea of saying, hey, if you want to play this risky game with not just your money, but the country's money, our nation's money, and you lose that shit, yeah, man, we're coming for you. We're putting you under the jail for that. We're taking that extremely personal because at the end of the day, it's personal to all the people who are left with the bag. And they're like, hey, I was supposed to have a home. All I see now is a construction site and nothing. I have nothing to show for it. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they're getting pennies back on the dollars that they lost in the situation. And this guy was like chilling on a yacht at one point, man. Clearly some shit went fucking wrong here. So in a way, it's like, hey, you're serving whatever justice you can there. And I guess I'm happy to kind of see that. Though y'all know how I feel about prison and all that. Obviously, it's like, yeah, that's gross in an international sense, of course. But it is good to see justice served in that way, hopefully. And hopefully, you don't see more of this kind of shit. I'm sure you won't in China, but who knows? Anyway. We have one more story that I wanted to cover. For the sake of time, we are not gonna do our last break. I'm just gonna have a little quick water break and we'll close it out. Okay, everything is holding. We've doubled the amount of time. It's Jesus Christ. Anyway, you had to be there. All right, our last story is coming from The Guardian. Let me take this quick water break. Okay, doke. Academic who accused Jason Arde of plagiarism suspended by his university. Nathan Cofnas, the academic who made plagiarism allegations against Professor Jason Arde before his death, has been suspended by a university. Arde, 41, resigned from his role at the University of Cambridge this month after coverage of Cofnas' accusations of plagiarism. The allegations, which were not proven in any formal investigation, triggered questions about Arde's achievements. There has been stiff criticism of Cambridge over its handling of the affair, but also of the coverage by some media. The university's chancellor, Chris Smith, described it as a racist feeding frenzy. Arde, who became Cambridge's youngest black professor in 2023, was found dead in Battersea, South London on Friday. The American anti-woke blogger Cofnas is a postdoctoral researcher at Ghent University's Department of Philosophy and Moral Sciences, according to his website. In a post on X Thursday, Cofnas said, "I'm under investigation by my university for discriminating against Arde." He added in a separate post, "I was just suspended by Ghent University. They will almost certainly fire me." Ghent University confirmed his suspension after saying they had been shocked by Arde's death and that it should prompt reflection, adding that the institution opposes discrimination, hatred, and racism. In a joint statement on Wednesday, Ghent University Rector Petra de Sutter and Vice Rector Herwig Reinert said, "We attach great importance to academic freedom and to open academic debate, even when views are controversial. However, that freedom is not unlimited." I will say, do I think that Ghent University suspends this guy if Arde doesn't take his own life? Probably not. It didn't seem like they were up until this point. But that being said, I have a problem with Ghent in the sense of like, hey, you're employing a guy who, let me see if I can get to it, but essentially has like one of his things is, here we go. In Cambridge in 2024 in blog posts, he said that in a meritocracy, blacks would disappear from almost all high profile positions outside of sports and entertainment. And then he also has in a piece called "Don't Scapegoat Women," published in January this year, Cofnas claimed women, but not men, can get people fired by pointing and crying. And it's like, dude, why are you having this guy on your roster, period? Like, now you're thinking about it after a black man takes his own life? Like, it's a bit late in the game for that. Like, and once again, I don't mind actually Cofnas saying, "Hey, I want to call out, this plagiarism thing." He is spinning these tall tales, and he is a professor when he shouldn't be. If this is why you hired him, I don't like that. I at the very least, want to, shed light on what's going on here in terms of the plagiarism. That would have been fine for me. It's when you look and say that, oh, there is a racist agenda here. He's trying to be like, this is a DEI, woke, affirmative action bullshit, da 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 da. And it's like, dude, yeah, you're getting everything that you deserve, in my opinion. You should not have a job. But that's just my 2 cents. Excuse me. But yeah, this was interesting to me that there was at least some sense of blowback. We will see if he does actually lose his job. That's just what he's saying. Right now, he is just suspended. But yeah, maybe we will come back to the story. Obviously, it's still unfortunate what happened to Arde. This guy gets to, cry and whine about his job and da 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 da. But, he'll be all right. Anyway, that is going to be the episode for today. Sorry if it felt a little bit weird, a bit rushed. The day didn't go like we wanted, but hey, sometimes that happens, but you make the most of it, right? But yeah, I don't really feel like chilling right now, so we're not gonna do that. You know where to find me on all the socials and all that fun stuff. So hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye bye. Mwah.